Hi everyone, my name is Peter. I am a co-founder with Nanoly Bioscience. And what we're doing is we're working to enable cheap, convenient, and safe delivery of vaccines to anywhere in the world without refrigeration. So every year, 20 to 26 million children are not immunized, and over 2 million people perish from vaccine-preventable diseases. This is in large part because vaccines must be refrigerated continuously from the point of manufacture to the point of care. This is a costly cold chain distribution system. It's a large infrastructure. You have to maintain it consistently. We're able to provide biological sample stability as well as medicinal preservation for long-duration manned space flight and future space settlement. This medicine would include antibiotics, insulin, epinephrine, and a slew of other vaccines that are temperature-sensitive biologicals. Our team is a young team, but we're passionate. We have a science advisory board that includes world-renowned chemists, bioengineer, and immunology. As well as the business and impact side for social impact, we also include my friend Professor Alexander Hayes to work on some of the business applications in space. What we're doing is that we're preventing heat from denaturing vaccines. When a vaccine denatures, it unfolds. It's that folded conformational structure that promotes the immunogenic response that produces antibodies for us. We do it with a polymeric encapsulation technique. This is a polymer mesh with photodegradable linkers so that when we want to release the vaccine for administration, we use wavelength-specific light, and that photorelease is on demand at the point of care. This provides a safe, effective, and low-cost means to get vaccines to anywhere in the world without refrigeration. The vaccine market is large and growing. At over $27 billion in 2009, with a large compound annual growth rate, it's expected to exceed $56 billion in 2016. Often the transportation costs to get vaccines to where they need to be can be up to 90%. For the cold chain part of this, which is the refrigeration part, whether it's in transit or in storage, that can be 14% in the developed world and up to 23% in the developing world. In very hard to reach areas, it can exceed 50%. An example would be diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis vaccine. At over $1 per dose for the cold chain, the vaccine itself only costs $1.50. We have billable materials of around 42 cents that we believe we can get down to around 4 cents with a factor of 10 improvement in economies of scale. That should provide over $70 million, or nearly $70 million per year, and that's just for one vaccine at one dose for 130 million births every year. But when you say that diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, as well as other vaccines require multiple doses, that number grows with it. So the global vaccine cold chain can, at a lower conservative estimate, is around $2.9 billion. When we look at beyond vaccines for other temperature-sensitive products, it can exceed $7 billion, and that's just for the cold chain. We're seeking over $1 million in financing in addition to aggressively pursuing non-dilutive funding from foundation grants as well as government grants. We'll be a scientific-focused company in the beginning, but by year 5, we hope to have 10 million doses in the field. With such a compelling problem, we're facing a lot of competition. However, the standard competition and portable refrigeration either requires grid electricity, portable electricity like solar power, gas, or batteries, and it's simply not very efficient. The freeze drying or lyophilization technique is an aggressive drying technique, and that increases the wastage rate, sometimes up to 50%. That wastage rate means that you have to have about 15 doses produced just for 10 effective doses. For our emerging competition, spray drying, carbohydrate crystallization, and synthetic spider silk are new technologies that are emerging. However, they all require drying of the vaccine. Some of them have demonstrated thermal stabilization, but they still yet face other problems, whether it's scalability, chemistry, or cost. We're using a polyethylene glycol base that's well respected and known in the FDA and biopharmaceutical world. It has a body of knowledge extending all the way back to 1955. We're co-opting existing technology that's patent pending, and we're introducing minimal change in the existing supply chain. Our technology can provide reliable medicinal storage, no refrigeration breakdown, no spare parts. This would be available for future space settlement, and it's technology that's space age for future space research as well. This unique technology is not only applicable in space, of course. It enables immunization access anywhere in the world and can also help facilitate new drug development. From a business standpoint, to get large scale, we're going to have to pursue a method that makes us attractive for acquisition. Merck, GlaxoSmithKline, Novartis have all been very active in the past few years in the merger and acquisition market. In addition to them, there's also Sanofi, Aventis, and Pfizer. Thank you very much for your attention. Ready to take questions.
First question I'd like to ask about is, so I think you guys got a tremendous product and some potential here clearly in the markets here on Earth. In the timelines of what you're looking out there, where do you see the real need for this is going to be occurring down the road in the space market?
Well, in the space market, we see an essential need for the ability to have access to medicine. You know, we've just heard about antimicrobial growth coatings or virus breakouts or anything like that that could happen. As soon as we start scaling up for space settlement or a manned space mission, that's going to be a long endeavor. So the technology to have that availability for medicinal storage would be great. Even more so, this is technology that wherever you go, you can then preserve that. You know, you don't need refrigeration where you end up.
But as far as timelines, are you thinking 5 years, 10 years?
We hope to have this technology ready and out in the market, an initial beachhead market in 5 years. So
but I'm talking about the market demand in the space industry. Right?
So in the space industry,
in other words, a colonization on the moon where you might actually need something like this.
Right, and so that should be ready and available. You know, if we invest now in this, we see it as ready and available at that time. You know, within 5 to 10 years.
A related question. Yours was the only business plan write-up that was less than 15 pages out of the 30 you had. And so I did a search for International Space Station, for ISS, for station, and all those combinations, hoping you would mention at least that you had talked to a space station representative, because if there's any place they're using vaccines or storing vaccines now, it's up there. And I didn't see anything. So did you even talk to anybody about what they're doing on space station with vaccine storage? Or are they doing any of that kind of stuff?
No, we haven't. We're incredibly young. We actually just formed the company and we assembled a team a couple of months ago. So this is very new and emerging technology. We have noticed that, you know, my own research has indicated that NASA has developed a commercial, sorry, not a commercial, a space-ready refrigerator for biological samples that fits that temperature mark that's necessary for medicinal biologicals. However, it is, while it has durability, it's only been tested up to about 6,000 hours.
Just a question about the key risks you have remaining from where you are today to getting something FDA approved and out on the market. Are there one or two major hurdles you need to go to? You know, what keeps you up at night in terms of getting a product out the door?
In order to make ourselves attractive for acquisition, no doubt we will be pursuing domestic regulatory approval. However, we think that one great method to reach markets early would be international approval with equivalency studies for preclinical data. So that would involve small scale followed by a large scale animal study with the correct animal models. And then moving on from that, constructing the clinical equivalent studies for FDA approval, we hope to qualify for a combination product. So we're not a vaccine manufacturer. We're not a medicine or new drug developer. We are co-opting existing technology for a delivery mechanism and storage mechanism.
A couple of questions. The first one is, do you think that the zero-G environment would have any effect on the process that you're using to stabilize these vaccines?
So this is a fairly robust polymer, and it's largely tailorable. And what that means is that it has been FDA approved in other instances, whether it's in drug stabilization in a powder form, or more importantly, joint replacement. What that means is, in regards to your question of microgravity, we don't see any complication for the polymer withstanding a microgravity environment.
And if and what about for markets like blood products?
Right, and so for different types of blood products, we are investigating that. We think perhaps one of the quickest, highest impact routes for that cachet effect would be vaccines. Insulin market is also a heavily regulated market as well. That's something that we're pursuing. As for blood products, sometimes the sheer volume can be, vaccines are generally smaller volume for high potency. Sometimes in the blood market, that might be requiring a larger scale up.
And is it scalable?
It is a scalable technology. The question is, when we do our photo-release method, we aren't 100% sure that we can do liters at a time, but milliliters definitely.
Okay. Thanks.
As I read your write-up, it sounds like this is like maybe the 10th business plan competition you've been in with this basic idea, right? And you won first place in several of those. You got second or third in a few others.
Mm-hmm.
I gather that was all very recently, in the last few years, maybe.
The last few months, actually.
Yeah, so I don't know. Awesome number of business plan competitions, but given that you got first place in several, why aren't certain investors or companies just throwing money at you now? Because this sounds pretty compelling. Why isn't something happening because of all those wins so far?
We're in a fundraising stage right now, and we're also still assembling part of the core team and negotiating the exclusive license with the university, as well as picking the lab space. So those are some of the administrative things that just have to happen first. But in addition, we are beginning to speak with investors here and abroad.